Hey y'all, howdy. Welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandra Broadwell, and today I'm recording from Moosehead Lake in Maine. I'm trying a new reading experiment today. Because of starting my booktube channel, so many more of my friends have realized that I am into reading as much as I am, and so it's exciting when I run into people I haven't seen in a while and they're super excited to talk to me about the books that they've read recently and to recommend some books of their own. I've picked 5 books for this vlog that some of my friends in real life have recommended to me since starting this booktube channel, and I'm interested to see whether I think my friends have good taste in books. Of course, taste is completely subjective, and just because I might not like the books that they chose doesn't mean that they actually have bad taste. So this is more just an experiment to see whether my friends know my taste or potentially whether my friends and I have similar tastes. The first book that I have chosen for this experiment is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. My friend Chrissy is the one who recommended this book to me, and I was super excited after getting that recommendation to find this at a local used bookstore back in my hometown for $5. It's a beautiful hardcover, it's signed. I was just really stoked to find this. But this is a historical fiction. It's set in the 1940s, and it's told in the narrative of an old woman reflecting back on her life. And so in the 1940s, our main character is a 19-year-old woman named Vivian who has recently dropped out of college, and her parents are kind of fed up with her lack of ambition, and they send her off to New York City to live with her aunt, who runs kind of a rundown theater that puts on kind of vaudevillian Broadway productions. I just started reading this last night. I'm about 50 pages in. So far, it's just about Vivian learning about New York City, meeting all these different people at the theater, and being like really enraptured by the theater experience, by the types of people who gravitate towards this profession. It's giving off very Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo vibes so far, and I loved that book, so I'm interested to see how this one's gonna go for me. And I will be sure to update you guys once I've read some more. So I just finished City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I am going to give my friend Chrissy a big thumbs up on her reading taste. I think I mentioned in the last clip, but this book definitely reminds me of Evelyn Hugo. It has the exact same sort of vibes in that it's a historical fiction. This is more about the atmosphere is like vaudevillian showgirls instead of Hollywood actresses. And so it's like a New York City kind of vibe. It's about this girl named Vivian who goes to live with her aunt, and she is a really good seamstress, and so she makes all of the clothes at her aunt's theater for all of the showgirls, and just gets wrapped up in kind of the allure of the city life and being a young free woman. She makes some pretty egregious mistakes as a young person that really kind of shapes her trajectory in life. And so this is just really it's like a coming of age story in a way, but it's also just about womanhood and being able to have the ability to discover who you are through trial and error. and learning from your mistakes along the way. I thought this was going to be a bit of a romance, but it really wasn't. There were men that came in and out of her life, but there was really nothing like that. It was exactly like Evelyn Hugo, though, in the sense that this is from the perspective of this woman as an old woman who is like telling the story of her life to a younger woman. And so, yeah, lots of parallels. I definitely think if you liked Evelyn Hugo that you would like this book. I don't like it quite as much as Evelyn Hugo, but it was a really, really fun, excellent read. The characters were just super vivid and leapt off the page. I just had a really good time with this and would recommend it. So thank you so much to my friend Chrissy for recommending City of Girls. My next book for this vlog that I'm going to read, I think, is going to be Dovekeepers by Alice Hoffman. And this was recommended by two old teachers of mine, Mark and Stacy. So thanks, Mark and Stacy. I can't wait to read the Dovekeepers. All right, so yesterday I finished the Dovekeepers and I was too emotionally distraught to talk to you about it then. I think the first clip that I recorded, I was maybe like 50 pages in and I really didn't have any idea what this book was about. So I probably talked about it very poorly. But basically, this book is based on a true historical event that occurred. And so I am going to talk about some spoilers, but you can literally look this up in history. And so I'm not going to give any particular story detail spoilers, but I am going to talk about the actual history of what happened, which is what the story is about. So basically, the Dovekeepers is a story about Masada. So if you have heard of Masada, it is this ancient fortress in Israel, and it was basically the place of the last stand of the Jews during the First Jewish-Roman War. After the Jews were cast out of Jerusalem, a bunch of them crossed the desert, went to this crazy mountain fortress called Masada. It was supposed to be impenetrable, and there were about 900 to 1,000 of them there. About 300 of them consider themselves warriors. The rest were like women, children, elderly folks, that sort of thing. They try to make a life for themselves there, but eventually the Romans come for them at Masada. Long story short, before the Romans can kill them all, they basically decide to all kill themselves. And so of like the 900 plus people that were there, only 2 women and 5 children survived to tell the tale. And that's what this is about. So it's very, very heart-wrenching. Not until the very end. But the title, The Dovekeepers, comes from the fact that Masada is like this. You should look up pictures of it. It is crazy. Maybe I'll insert some pictures of it because it's really incredible that this place really exists. But it's out in the middle of the desert, and so in order to grow crops and be able to sustain their community, they keep several thousand doves, and the doves fertilize basically all of their fields of crops. Everyone in the community has different jobs that they get once they get there, and there's 4 main women who are the Dovekeepers in this community. And so the book is split up into 4 different parts, and each one follows one of these 4 different women and how they became Dovekeepers, what their life was like as they were fleeing from their old life where they were being persecuted in Jerusalem or other parts of Israel at the time, how they got there, the hardships they went through. You know, a lot of times, like a lot of their friends and family perished along the way. And so this is just about their stories and their lives all the way up through the siege of Masada. So I won't give anything away about which of the women survive or which of the children survive or anything like that. But obviously not everyone whose perspective you follow in this book makes it to the end. And it's just a really eye-opening account, especially because there are so few stories told from the perspective of women during this time period. You know, I think this book starts in the year 70, and I think it goes through like the year 73 when the siege takes place. Very little is known about what the lives of a lot of women were like. The book divides it up and talks about them in their relationship to the men in their lives, which was really interesting. Like, I think part 1 is the assassin's daughter, part 2 is the baker's wife, part 3 is like the warrior's lover. So I thought that was an interesting choice because this book has such a feminist perspective, but these women are really defined and limited by the men that they meet or are around along the way. Long story short, this book was incredible. I will think about this for years and years to come, undoubtedly. I didn't give it a full 5 stars. I think I gave it like a 4.5 just because it was pretty slow, but I don't think it really couldn't have been any other way. Just usually when I give a book a 5 star, it's like I'm like kicking my feet while I'm reading it. You know, this was not that type of book. I am really haunted by learning about all of this. It's one of those things that I'm surprised I didn't know about this before. I'm sure if I had any Jewish lineage, I would already know this story, but it was really just a masterpiece of historical literature, and I highly recommend it if you think you can handle something that is so heavy. But it was really, really beautifully done. So the third book that I've picked up for my Do My Friends Have Good Taste reading vlog is Seveneves by Neil Stevenson. My brother recommended this book to me ages ago, and I have yet to pick it up. So now's the time. I picked this up a couple days ago. I forgot to update, but I am now around the 300-page mark. This book has gripped me right from the very first sentence. So I'll go ahead and read that sentence to you all so you can get a little taste of what is in store. The moon blew up without warning and for no apparent reason. So that's how Seveneves kicks off. Basically, an asteroid hit the moon. It broke into like 7 or 8 huge chunks, and then those chunks over the next couple of years started bumping into each other, causing more and more debris, and eventually this has led to the destruction of Earth. There were just so many rocks that have been raining down on the planet because of this, that it hit like an exponential curve at some point and just kept breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. So this story is about the astronauts that were on the International Space Station when this happened, and the efforts on Earth to try, because they basically have realized that this hard rain that they're calling it is going to last for thousands of years, and that basically all life on Earth is going to be obliterated. So in the time that they have left before the hard rain begins, the governments of Earth are trying to figure out a way to send up as many rockets into space as they can with as many people as they can to make sure that humanity survives. And so they're trying to make the International Space Station kind of the hub where all these different places can dock. It's not built for that. It wasn't meant for that. And so it's just about this like incredible hustle that everyone is undergoing to try and just save as many people as they can and ensure the future of the human race. So at the 300-page mark. I'm at the point in the story now where humanity is sending up its last couple of rockets, and like it has hit that time when they're about to lose all communication with Earth. It's super interesting. Everyone has these sort of different motivations for why they want to be on the International Space Station, like what their jobs are, how their jobs have changed from the time when they were just like scientists to now they're like the future of humanity and that sort of thing, and just like the psychological trauma that puts on you, and just the dynamics of being stuck in close quarters with the same people and knowing that you're never going to see your family and friends again, and those sorts of things. Really loving it. This gripped me, like I said, from the very first, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. From what I know, about halfway through the book maybe, it's going to switch because the first 300 pages plus what I'm reading right now is basically covering like the first 2 years plus since that first asteroid hit the moon. And I think there's going to be a big time jump in the second half of the book where it's going to lose all the characters we followed up to now, and it'll be like several centuries in the future just to check in on what has happened to humanity in the meantime. So I'm really interested to see what happens when we get to that point. All right, y'all, it's the final check-in for the Do My Friends Have Good Taste, because I just finished Seveneves. And I gotta say, this book went a little off the rails at the end. I know in my last clip I talked about how I knew there was gonna be a big time jump. I think I said something like a couple centuries. So it's really the first 2/3 of the book that is the apocalyptic fate of humanity type of story. That part of the story was 5 stars to me. If you like hard sci-fi, this was, I think, a pinnacle of exactly what I want out of a hard sci-fi. It asks a lot of questions. There was technology and politics and psychology and sociology and just like so many great thought experiments, but also enough thrilling aspects and interesting characters that this was just so compelling. Then the last 1/3 jumps 5,000 years in the future, and I really don't know what the author was trying to do with that section of the book. It had a completely different tone altogether. It was really like 2 different books entirely that were smashed together, and I don't really understand the way the first 2/3 of the and this book is 880 pages long. So it's a chunker. And so even if just the first 2/3 had cut off exactly where it cut off, I think that would have been a good ending to the book. So I'm not sure really like what the last couple hundred pages were doing here. And it got a lot more into like different races that developed in the like post-human world because there were so few humans left. It was just an interesting take. I would say I would give the last third of the book 3 stars. So overall, Seveneves is a solid 4 stars because I just absolutely loved the first 2/3 of the book, and it didn't really ruin it for me, the last 1/3, but it did definitely knock it down a peg or 2 in my esteem. But still, I completely understand why my brother recommended this book to me, and I'm so glad that I finally read it, and I absolutely understand why he loves it so much. So I think this was a really successful vlog. My friend Chrissy recommended City of Girls. That was a thumbs up. My friends Mark and Stacy recommended The Dovekeepers. That was a big thumbs up. And then my brother recommended Seveneves. So I think this proves that this was a great concept, that my friends either have similar taste to me or know my taste or just know what sorts of books to recommend to me based on things that they've read. So I'm definitely gonna give this similar premise another go in the future, and I'll just be saving more friends' recommendations as we go. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate you all hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed some of the beautiful footage of the places I've been visiting over the last month while I was reading these books. And as always, be kind, read books, hit the subscribe button below, and I'll see you next time.